Hi, morning everybody. How are you all? That was a great keynote there by Dr. Tull. I mean, again, I felt like I was back in university because she dropped so much knowledge on us and so much insight into the industry and what's going on. Um, I'm hoping Dr. Tull could join us later this evening for our question and answer session because I'm sure everybody has lots of questions they want to tackle with her. But morning, my name is Maarten. I am a project officer at MusicTT. Again, I'm just going to be here just to moderate. I'm going to try and keep what I have to say very brief, but I'm going to just try and steer the conversation on the future of live streaming. We have three really exciting panelists with us this morning, and I think the conversation is going to be really interesting. I mean, from just what we had talked about in our little pre-meeting, I think some minds are about to be blown. So let me introduce everybody one by one. So we're going to go ladies first. We have Tisha Jack. She's an event manager at TCJ Events and is an experienced Caribbean event planner and consultant with a MSc in International Event Management from Surrey University. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Okay, great. Then we have no stranger to Reverb, Mr. Keron Rose, who's an online business strategist and a Caribbean entrepreneur. And he's hosted Digipreneur FM podcast, owner of the Digipreneur Academy, and all-round guru in anything to do with digital and online business.
Thank you for having me.
And finally, we have Mr. Shem Brewster, who is a QAAMER. Shem, you'll correct me if I'm saying that wrong.
That's right.
Virtual live events in North and South America for Bloomberg Media. He's also experienced producer working in live and virtual events services. So welcome everybody to the panel. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. So we're gonna just jump straight into it, right? We are, since the COVID pandemic started, we kind of had in Trinidad, especially the whole live industry and performance industry just kind of shut down. People were trying to figure out ways to do it. I know you all have been some of the pioneers in what can happen, but I just want to start talking about the traditional ways things have been being done, especially in Trinidad and the Caribbean. And what's your opinion on that? And I'll start with you, Tisha, if you don't mind. I think you're muted.
Sorry. Was the last part you said? You just broke up there a little bit.
Sorry, yeah. So we just want to talk about the traditional way live events have been being done,
right?
Virtually in Trinidad over the last year and a half, and
right.
What have been your experience, particularly with dealing with customers on that?
Right. So for the most part, what we've seen happening is a heavy reliance on social media. So the Instagram lives, the YouTube lives, and not many have, I guess, pushed the envelope yet. And that's what we're going to talk about to kind of get them to encourage them to be able to do that. But what I've seen happening is either a combination of being brave and having the production ready to have your show live, as in everything happening real time, or doing a pre-recorded show and then uploading that as a live stream. So that's more or less where we've seen persons leaning towards over the past couple of months.
Okay, and Keron, is this we're gonna get real into this topic later, but I want to talk about what have you been seeing? Because I know you deal with a lot of clients who have been trying to do this. Have you seen a resistance from anybody trying to switch over to this kind of live or virtual hybrid type system going on?
Yeah, there's been a lot of resistance period towards doing a more push for video. I think with respects to companies are still trying to figure out how can video and live video work within their business construct. and trying to figure out how to start to create content and then more importantly, do it live. So there is some resistance towards it. And then from a smaller scale in terms of, creatives and entrepreneurs and people deciding to jump on and do live streaming, you're seeing a lot more people do Instagram lives because it's one of the easiest ways to go live. The platform is popular. It's easy to get on live. So we see a big push to doing it there, but we don't see too much of a push to do it outside of Instagram live and start to get a bit more technical. And then Tisha touched on some really good points as well. So excited to hear what Shem has to say.
Yeah, and Shem, so, I've been following what you've been doing for a while. And even before the COVID-19 thing, you've been doing streaming events. I think for probably the last 5 years, I've seen you, doing streaming for these different companies out of the US. How have you seen the increase in volume in those type of things on your side of it?
So there's something that I recognize before COVID, everything was more based for the people who wasn't able to come to the meetings and stuff. Everything was based on in-persons. Now, because of COVID, everybody is realizing that the online experience is as equally as important as the live experience. So because of that, a lot of money and a lot of thought is going into making sure that the online experience is good. And because of that, we have a lot of development now. One thing that kind of opened up my eyes now is the relationship between all what we do and the marketing departments of companies. So, like for example, I work with Bloomberg, but I am in the marketing department, which when I first got the job was a big eye opener for me, because normally I'm technical, AV, doing all the streaming, doing the actual work. But now I have to see what are the marketing goals now, and then align that for my area, which is North and South America, and what goals that they have for that. So it's definitely grown significantly. There's a lot of money being pumped into it, and Bloomberg had a forecast that by 2028 to 2028 and 2030, that the American market will worth 60 billion, and the global market is going to be worth 200 billion in revenue for the hybrid events and online events.
Okay, wow. So we could see definitely a huge growth and expansion of that market. So Shem touched on something there, the production of the events. So maybe Tisha, you could get a little bit into that. So as it was before COVID, maybe these streaming style events was an afterthought. You create your whole event, you do everything, and he's like, oh man, we need to stream it. So let me just bring in a video guy and stream this event. So, how have you seen that change? And is that something that goes into your planning when you're kind of looking at events for customers now,
Right. To be honest, it hasn't changed. That is still the general mindset, that we probably just need to roll up with one camera or two, hook it up and go live, not realizing that there's a lot of work that has to happen before. And for me, from my end, because I am more into the planning side, I'm not so much the tech side. So I have my tech guys who will support. For me, it's always what is the experience that is coming into this live or coming into this stream. So there's a lot of work that has to go into, what we call the production runs and the plannings and what is to happen where. And what you find happening is that a lot of people underestimate what has to happen before you actually hit that go live button. So for me, it has been, a lot of teaching along the way and revelations for clients, just realizing how much work has to be put into these things, that even if it's a 30-minute show, you're probably going to spend 30, 40 hours in planning, just to get that short stream that you see. So for me, a lot of it is still, a lot of people still have to appreciate what is required, and it's not just, as you said, put a camera up, get a good looking quality, and press go live and stream what we would have been accustomed to seeing if we were there in person. For me, live streams kind of have to push the envelope a little more in terms of how you get the audience engaged, and I guess we'll get into that further as we talk. Yeah.
Right, and I remember Keron saying something yesterday in his keynote, talking about the whole experience. I mean, Keron, could you touch on that a bit more, especially for that like DIY artist that has to kind of do everything himself? And I mean, what are some of the things he can do to really make his stream more than just Instagram live on his phone while he's, you know, on stage singing, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. So I mean, there's levels to streaming, and when the pandemic hit last year, me and Tisha, like every other day, we're always sharing notes about everything that we learned about streaming and the things that we needed to do in order to up level. And while Tisha works, you know, more on the corporate side and planning the events, for me, I created my own digital show and I turned my own room into a studio. So I had to learn how to do streaming. Rather than using my computer and a webcam, I invested in a DSLR and a capture card so that I can stream with DSLR-like quality, rather than just using something where I'm not going to get the cleanest picture. I invested in tools, something like this called a Stream Deck that works as like a hard switcher that you would use in newsrooms, where if you wanted to switch different camera angles, switch to videos or cutscenes, you can program everything into this hard switcher, and that's going to be able to give you a nice, smooth show to transition to different types of assets. Learning about the different types of live streaming software. So two of the big popular ones is OBS, and then if you're a Mac user, I use something called Ecamm Live. So if you're deciding that, you know what, you want to do more than just an Instagram live or a Zoom, you know, you can actually produce your own style shows where it comes off as professional grade. So if you decide to jump into and you learn things like an OBS or an Ecamm Live, StreamYards to a lesser extent, you're going to be able to create a nice experience. And then the other thing too, in terms of people need to start looking at, you know, how do they upgrade their audio? Because it's one thing to upgrade the video. The next thing is audio. So rather than just using your computer microphone or a headset for your phone, investing in actual audio equipment that's going to be able to upgrade your sound. So those are a couple of things to upgrade that experience. And the equipment doesn't have to get overly expensive, especially when you are starting out. But those are some components that as soon as you start to bring into the mix, your level of quality for your live streaming is going to be 10x than, like I said, just going live on an Instagram or just going live on Facebook or Zoom.
Right, and something you said there. So with all these upgrades, you said it doesn't cost too much. What could, like, I mean, I know you might not have these metrics offhand, but like the return on investment and something like that, do you see? Did you like, when you started to invest in these kind of things, did you see a vast improvement in the numbers on your stream or engagement by your audience, you know?
Everything for me was immediate, because what I did was, when I started, I documented the process of putting together my studio and learning to live stream. So my first couple of live streams that I did was done, like my very first one was done from my iPad and using the iPad's mic. The video was terrible, the audio was terrible, but it was like the very first time I went live, right? So the very next session that I went live, I actually got my Ecamm Live software, and it was still my webcam for my computer, but Ecamm gave me some functionality to be able to switch between different camera angles and switch between like a slideshow. So people progressively saw me testing things out. And again, I brought people along for a journey. So there was a bit of a story behind it. Now, when I launched my web series, Digital Age, there was about 2 months that had transpired from the very first time I went live with just my camera on my iPad to finally getting all of my equipment, my DSLR, my microphone, my audio interface, and then learning more about Ecamm Live, 2 months had transpired, and because people seeing the documentation of me experimenting from absolute terrible quality, when Digital Age episode 1 live, and we had cutscenes, we had commercials, everything was clean, people were like, oh my goodness. So there was a build-up to the very first show. So there was a good size audience. And then by that time too, I had already secured my sponsors. So again, they believed in the vision of what I was doing. So I had my sponsors that I was able to get on board. The audience was tuned in. And we just created a show-like experience from start to finish. But the buildup really happened in documenting the process and letting the people come in as a part of that process throughout the entire process.
Right. So, I mean, I guess that speaks to the importance of the narrative, right? So maybe Shem, is that the importance of that narrative evident in the kind of bigger events that you all do? Or, I mean, is it more, this is the production and this is the solutions for the live stream?
Yeah, I really liked what Keron said there. He was talking about Ecamm Live, and I like Ecamm Live. Ecamm Live could get you more or less get you that great quality you're looking for. More for the corporate stuff, they use more Wirecast and vMix to do the productions. For the bigger shows, again, Ecamm Live is amazing for someone that's really getting into it, and even bigger companies use it too, because I think it's really cool how you can move stuff around in it. There's something he said also too that is critically important, and is really control how you're able to fund it is by, he talked about getting sponsors, but it's about aligning yourself with the marketing departments or companies and helping to push what they kind of want to push in a way, and while doing that, doing your stuff, because the cost of this equipment, for example, OBS is free, so you could download OBS and get into it and start doing it, but the cost could get up there, depending on what type of stuff that you really want to do, and the type of quality, and we're trying to make sure that we have the right quality, because the right quality, as I was taking Keron, I think it was 2 days ago you spoke, the right quality will help with your engagement, and then the engagement will then help with numbers and different things. So getting the right quality is important, and if you get these sponsors on board with your stuff, you might be able to start, running from the blocks right away, getting the right gear and getting the right stuff, making sure the audio, definitely the audio is on point, video and lighting is on point, and yeah, I think that from what he said, everything from what we do is just get scaled. It starts like that because he has the building blocks, but everything scales up for bigger events. So from using a DSLR, they'll be using the Blackmagic Ursa 4K cameras, and everything will be running fiber optics, and all the audio will be done by Dante, and everything going to be digital. But the average guy like us, we could more or less have a very high quality also by having the right stuff in place.
Right. So Tisha, I actually want to bring you in on this thing here. So they talked about sponsors. I prefer to think of them as partners. But so when we look at these partners, does that factor into your planning? Do you involve your partners, like your corporate partners, when you're planning events, or do you just present them with something and then they could kind of negotiate? What's that relationship like?
It's a combination of the two, actually, because I think if we have to be realistic with our local landscape, in approaching the corporate sponsors, they kind of want to know that what you say you're going to do, you're actually able to do, and what you are able, or what you say you're going to promise them that you can deliver on, right? So Shem kind of touched on it just now in terms of saying that you have to have some kind of, you have to start yourself. Like, you have to show that you are really interested in this. You have made some kind of investment for yourself. Some corporate some corporate sponsors appreciate that, listen, I'm going to support you from the jump and we working with you. And usually when that happens, yes, you have to integrate them into decision making from the jump. So some of our artists, you will kind of see that, from them building up, their sponsors have been rolling with them from the basics while they're trying to figure it out to getting better and better and better. Whereas there are some that have to put it out on their own, and then the corporate sponsors jump on after that. So I think in terms of, to answer your question very directly, how they are involved, it depends on at what stage of the journey they come into. But definitely once they are on board, they are, as you said, a partner, and you have to get them involved, understanding what they would like to get out of the partnership, because you're right, it is a partnership. And as much as they are supporting you, they ideally need to get something out of it. So you have to understand, what matters to them, what will make sense for them, what is going to, how are they going to measure their return on investment into you, so that you can kind of tie those things into your production, into your how you package your event. And I want to just also bring back something that Keron said too. That experience in terms of building up from showing people the behind the scenes, again, that gives you additional mileage for your sponsor, because it will kind of tie back into your sponsor, showing that your sponsor, is supporting you from the ground up. People like to see the mess. I don't know why we always think that what we put out always have to be polished. People appreciate the journey, and they have a greater appreciation for the final product when they kind of understand that they were there with you throughout the process. So I think particularly for musicians, that is something that we need to tap into more. Show us when you're going into the studio, show us when you're writing the music, and tie those things into your final production as well. At the end of the day, all these events are experiences and stories. And I think once we tie that into how we do it, corporate will buy into that even more as well, because they are also now buying into your story.
I just want to add in a couple of things. So when I started, right, I did not approach, when I had the idea for Digital Age, I didn't approach sponsors at all when I had the idea. When I was documenting the process, it was just all on me, right? What I did was I invested my own money, and that is key, because a lot of the times we don't want to invest our own money and put our own skin in the game. So I had my own money saved up, and I had invested and bought all of the equipment. Now, what I did was, after I got everything and I realized, okay, this is the idea for the show, Digital Age. Now that I have all my equipment, I could step things up. I started to think about who would also benefit from the content that I'm going to be putting out. I know that my thing is going to be about showcasing companies, products, services, and Caribbean entrepreneurs that are building in the digital space. What companies are also trying to tap into that exact same artist? And then I found 3 partners that pretty much were on the same or similar mission than me. And because I had documented my process, that was some assets that I showed them to show them. I was able to show them to say, this is the idea of what we are trying to do. I also built out a Digital Age website so that the sponsors had additional real estate, so that they could brand, they could get their logos and stuff with links back to their websites or products and services. And then I also did some demos of what an actual branded stream would look like. So I was showing them, like, okay, we're gonna have the logo popping up in the corner. We're gonna brand the segments. We're gonna brand the timer. So I had all of these things documented, and I had a demo live stream done, so that when I reached out to them and I gave them the story of what we are trying to do, I showed them all of the different assets that they are going to be able to use to leverage to be able to draw people back. It made an easy decision for them to say, hey, you know what? Yes, let's do it. You are aligned. Plus, you have a body of work. You're not somebody that just popped up out of nowhere just looking for money. You have been consistent in your messaging for some time, and we can see that you have been doing this for some time. So it made it, I made sure I tried to make it as easy as possible for them to say yes to getting on board and aligning with. But most importantly, don't just run to sponsors right out the gate. and think they're just going to give you money. At the end of the day, for them, a lot of it is a business. It is a business decision for them. So you need to figure out ways for your partners to, one, be able to work with you. Like, what are they going to be getting in return? How are they going to be able to brand? And then also come to them with some type of demo or something that you can show them, so it doesn't just look like, again, they're giving you money and you're not really getting too much in return.
Okay, so I mean, again, we'd say that corporate partnership is kind of essential in what's happening next with live streaming, right? Because again, it doesn't make sense for you to just stream to your audience and nobody else is benefiting off of it. Other people can give you money or give you product or whatever it is to get the opportunity to be part of your journey and really partner with brands like that, right? So I
think it's not just that. It's also because, as Shem touched on, the quality that you ideally want to get to and the reach that you probably eventually want to have is going to be pretty costly. Like, you're not even going to glaze over it. A proper high-end production is going to be costly, right? So the reality is that you will want to partner with persons to help you cover this cost so that you are able to deliver the kind of product that you want to. And we're just saying that in the process that you don't approach it as, well, I just want your money. You have to find ways of how this partnership will benefit the corporate sponsor as well.
Well, I think Keron said something about investing in yourself. I think that's the foundation of it. I think about putting as much as you can into it and doing the best as you can and presenting that, because any visionary within their marketing department will be able to see where they could then take what you have, if there was to add the right resources to you, and then more or less develop you. So right now, I definitely know up here, and I actually know a company in Trinidad that doing now, it's called Songforge. They are putting a lot of information and a lot of and money into buying gear and buying stuff to get the stuff to the right place. And even up here, there's a whole drive now for AV companies that was doing corporate AV. Everyone has become broadcast studios now. Everyone has a hybrid department now. Everyone has this infrastructure. The nice thing about the AV companies up here is that because they already had the infrastructure for the gear, they already had the gear to do it now. All they need to do now is just focus on aligning with a corporate sponsor, a partner, aligning with a marketing department, and more or less bringing in extra revenue with the hybrid events and the live events. And and everything then kind of move forward. And from there, moving forward, all events moving forward is going to be hybrid. There's no doubt about it. There's no company that's going to get away from it. Attendees are going to ask, hey, can I click on your app to see this? And even the companies themselves are recognizing that, hey, I have 400 people here live, but I can reach 2,000 people by putting it online also too. So even from a marketing perspective, it makes a lot of sense for them to do it. So I think that we are in a very exciting times concerning how this is going. I want to throw out a question to Tisha concerning from a meeting planning. What have you seen in Trinidad? What have you seen concerning people's social media strategy?
Strategy in terms of what? How they treat with these events?
Yeah, like how they treat with the events. Like you have these clients, and what are the social media questions that comes up concerning it?
If I have to be honest, a lot of them are still grappling with what the options are, at least the ones that I have come across. There are some who've gotten it and figured it out and are running consistently. But for me, at least in my experience, I'm still seeing a lot of heavy reliance on social media. And then if it's not social media, it's Zoom. right? But in my space, and if you have to bring it up, that environment sometimes is not always suitable, or what you want to achieve is not always suitable for just a social media situation or a Zoom, depending on what you're trying to achieve out of it. So you can let me know if that answers your question, but it is still a lot of just, I want to do this event and we want to go live on Facebook, YouTube, and whatever else, or I want to do a Zoom event. But for me, a lot of, and because it's not totally on topic, but just to say that there are a lot of other platforms that, you know, some corporate companies have tapped into because of the type of event that they were trying.
I think what has to happen is we kind of have to break down because people that are listening are just going to hear, you know, live streaming and live events, but not know that there is a wide variety of different types of events that require different things. So if you are somebody where, you know, your company is trying to do a live event and it's going to be a lot of talking heads, and you work with an event planner, you know, how are you guys handling, you know, the keynotes, the workshops, the networking? There's specific types of platforms that are going to facilitate that Tisha will be able to get into. And I think, again, as the conversation goes on, we could talk about the different types of events or what types of things they would look at. I think from an individual level, from quality, I think because we know that virtual events are here to stay and hybrid events are going to be happening. I think if you are somebody that knows that you are going to be speaking on a regular basis and, you know, coming to live events, I think at bare minimum you should be learning
performing in the vein of the musicians.
I think you need to know, like, at bare minimum what you can do to up your own quality. So even if it's as simple as investing in a webcam and getting yourself a microphone, just knowing the bare minimum of what you need to invest in terms of up your own quality so that you can participate in some of these events. But again, as we go, I think we can start to talk about the different scale of events, different types of events, and what is required, what does that look like, in best practices.
Cool.
Yeah, so that's actually transitioning really well, because I really wanted to talk about not just the types of events, but the types of interactivity for events, right? So I know from working in it on my own here as well, and working with different artists and stuff, everybody's more interested in just doing an event where they either just capture video and push it out as a stream, right? There's no interactivity, there's no feedback from an audience. And people feel, oh, that's the best way to do it for some weird reason. I don't understand why. I don't know if the artists, but they are the future thinking ones. They thinking about, I want to be able to see my audience and interact with them. And there are like 100 different ways to do that. I mean, can we talk about what the interactivity looks like from the basic, a guy with his camera and a microphone, what kind of interactivity routes can he take, all the way up to the big corporate telecommunication companies doing these streaming events to millions of people? What kind of interactivity? How do we negotiate those kinds of things? And what are our options? Let's start with the small man.
I guess everybody's going to take it. I can start. I think, as you said, let's start on the most basic level, right? Audience engagement in this virtual world is higher on the list, I guess, if you were to do a face-to-face event. Because with the face-to-face, you know, you're in the room, you can feel the energy, you can kind of feed off of that vibe. With virtual, it's a little harder. And, you know, from the basic level of seeing what's coming up in your comments, and you know, that's where it starts first, right? So most events where I've had attendees say that, you know, they really enjoyed it, the chat section was on fire, right? And that is really on the most basic level, whoever is the person live on camera, just engaging with their audience, having certain call to action, asking them to do things to respond in a certain way. The next level from that is while you're performing, if the platform that you're on, or the way that you set that up facilitates you actually having persons have their cameras on so you can see, how they are responding in real time. As the event gets bigger and bigger in terms of your attendees, that is going to become harder because, of course, if you're trying to reach 2, 3, 5, 10,000 persons, that is going to be a little hard, and that's where the whole hybrid aspect comes into play, because then hybrid allows you to have a smaller audience in person so that you kind of get that energy, but you're still reaching a wider audience. I think Shem will be great to tap into this because I've been seeing what's happening internationally, and the technology to do those things that blow mind. And we haven't really seen too much of that happening here in terms of concepts and how some of those artists have been able to do that for the past couple months.
Okay, so from a entertainment perspective, I can't remember the artist, but remember that guy that had the event on that PS4 game. Can't remember the game now.
Are you thinking Travis Scott and
Travis Scott.
You're right, Travis Scott, and that was oh god, that was the shooting game.
I think that was Fortnite.
Fortnite. There
yes.
we go.
Yeah, and that's the guys that worked on that was one of my friends from Miami, and it was pretty cool to talk to him about it and how they more or less put this virtual reality stuff of him and the shooting and the camera angles and stuff to have this integration. Because if you know anything about Fortnite, which I don't really know, I know that it seems that you could be dancing, you have particular dances and stuff that you could physically have your character do in the game. So to have this guy here and to have this virtual conference and you you having your avatar more or less dancing from there. And I think that kind of open up how stuff, that's a good example of how stuff kind of open up. On a corporate level, I saw something about 2 months ago where there's a company, I can't fully remember the name of the company, but they have iPads on wheels, more or less, and the person log into the iPad, so their face is on the iPad, and more or less you have control like a PS4 or Xbox controller, and you actually control this iPad with a stick and on wheels, and you can move around and more or less integrate with people and talk to people. Right, it is a two-way communication, and that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool to see, considering engagement. But most of the engagement normally happens online, as Tisha was talking about, inside of those comments, where the comments is be fire. And what they do is that they have a special team to just manage that. So for the smaller events, it's fine. You can have 1-2 people, but for the bigger events where you get to the 1,000, 2,000, they have a special team calling stuff out, and then they have from there they filter the content to the presenters by using something called confidence monitors, which you don't see. They hang it up and have them all around, and they look around and they choose and they call stuff out. They'll be like, hey, that was a great comment from Maarten, based in Trinidad. Maarten made a great example of what we trying to talk about and stuff like that, and they have that engagement going, and other people then chime in and stuff. So they have a team of people managing it, and and from there everything tend to help the engagement and help things move forward. And what, like, I know I have a lot of questions for what's going on back home. But
I want, before you ask the question, I want to add to the engagement conversation.
Yes.
So with respects to live streaming, one of the biggest ways to build the engagement is to have you working with a platform that allows you to highlight people's comments, that bring people's comments onto the screen, so people can actually see the comments coming in and going. Then you have one of my personal favorites in terms of engagement for live streaming is, if you look down here, I use something called a Rodecaster Pro. The Rodecaster Pro has an entire MIDI pad that allows me to now add in sound effects. What I can also do is I can have people phone call in and treat my entire live stream setup like a radio station. So while I'm live, like right now, if I gave up my phone number right now, somebody can call in, the Rodecaster can pick it up, and I could bring in that phone call right into the live stream. So when you start to add different components like this to your live stream, it breaks up the monotony. It adds more engagement to your live streams. And again, these types of things only just make your live streams even better. It doesn't make it boring, right? So I just wanted to add those two things in terms of engagement. Shem, go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I know that budget, is having to try to sell this to the corporate people in Trinidad or the government, whoever has the money, is maybe the hardest thing to do. But what struggles you guys? What are the biggest struggles you guys have in convincing the decision makers to show them that, hey, this is going to have a great impact on your brand. This is going to have a great impact on what you plan to do and what you're trying to say. That's mainly what my question is.
So before you even think about live streaming, the biggest challenge is companies don't like to create content. They like to create ads. So getting people, I mean, when you're doing a live stream, this is content. You got to put together a run of show. You got to have a topic. You bring in speakers, or if it's your own internal staff. Companies around Trinidad, not even just Trinidad, because this is a Caribbean thing. We don't like to create content. Instead, we like to focus on just creating ads. The most we are willing to do is we will sponsor events. You'll quicker get money for somebody. If you say you want to do a concert, you'll get that money, no problem. Or you'll get it a lot easier than if you are trying to create content or get content sponsored. So just getting companies in that frame of mind to think, create content to build your brand, to generate leads and generate sales is like a key starting challenge. Tisha, I know you have even more.
I think it's just right now it's a mindset change that is required across the board. We've been accustomed to doing things a certain way, and the last couple of months have shown us that we need to all step out of our comfort zones if we have to continue, not even continue, if we have to do what we love doing, right? So as you said, Shem, hybrid is where we're going. Like there's no if, buts, ands, or maybes. So for us, we are, or you're hearing a lot of comments, I can't wait to do this again. But the reality is you're gonna do this again on a 2.0 level, because now we should realize that our audiences are not just who can physically walk into a venue. For this particular sector, we have to start thinking outside the box. And this is what the concept of live streaming is going to allow us to be able to do. Bring in audiences that are not just the ones that can physically walk into a venue, but also those who can enjoy the content. And I think the keynote speaker touched on it. The diaspora is ready and willing to put in their credit card numbers to consume this content. And I think we always have this mindset that the audience that we're trying to reach is just where we're geographically located. But if anything, these last couple of months have taught us is that our audiences are way beyond our shores. So for me, if we take anything out of this, it is understanding that when we start doing our shows and our festivals and all these things again, how can we incorporate the whole, concept of live streaming and get everybody to realize that, hey, this thing can be way bigger than the 5,000 persons that can fit, or even 3,000, because we're going to be in this panini for a little while, and we're gonna have control numbers physically for a little while, but that shouldn't stop us from, as Keron said, creating content and getting the content out there to reach audiences that are not physically able to consume but can do it via a live stream.
Right. One of the reasons why I was asking, because I had a conversation with a good friend of mine, Brennan Virgil. He's a song engineer for the 18 band, and he's in Atlanta now, and we had a really good conversation. I was asking him why they're not streaming the live stuff that they have back home. I think that they tour. I think they're on tour now, so they're going to different states. I think that experience, I think people back home, this is my personal experience, you can correct me if I'm wrong, back home would like to see these our artists outside Trinidad doing what they're supposed to be doing, what they're doing, and enjoying themselves and stuff. He sent me some short clips, and I fully enjoyed it. You know, I fully liked what he was doing. They put stuff on Instagram all the time. I saw Patrice Roberts, and I thought it was pretty cool. But not only for the people back home, but I think that we are missing out on a market here within the United States to then stream to other parts. 'Cause I personally will pay to see one of my really good friends produce a show. I will pay for it to see it. And there are people up here definitely that will they put 50, 60 US, you know, into it, and to pay for the streams, and it's just from that point it's just to add the quality and stuff like that. So that's the reason why I had all these questions, because I
I
wasn't
think.
understanding why.
Go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, I wasn't understanding why. I wanted to see what was the walls that was there that was preventing stuff like that from happening.
So here's another big wall, and I'm gonna serve this one up for Tisha. Another big wall is companies think digital means cheap or cheaper than live. So because they don't understand what goes into digital and the cost of digital,
Right.
when they hear about some of the costs associated with going digital, their minds are blown, because it's like, but wait a minute, if the physical in-person event was 30,000, how is the digital event 30,000? I thought this is supposed to be a quarter of the cost. So Tisha, please jump in on that.
And I would want to hear Martin's view on this from his side as well, right? But
Martin
yes,
rolled his eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, because for me, honestly, yeah, every quote, the one you have to justify the most is the production cost. And it's the one I always have to negotiate the most. It's the one that you have to tell the fellas, listen, we need to do this because we have to show them what it is. And then the next time they'll appreciate, why that is. Because as I said, it's a mindset shift. It's a culture shift. But you're right. It is costly if you want it done properly. And I think, going forward is not just doing it, but putting the information out there. Let people openly talk about what these things will actually cost. So when we start budgeting for these events, now we appreciate that this is what it's going to cost. Videography versus a production is two different costs. Whereas you're putting up a camera to record and capture, but now you're pushing out to that software, that's backups, that's a whole bunch of things. So I think that's what it is. But Maarten will probably be well poised to add to that.
Yeah, so I can talk on it from a procurement side for the government, because yes, we had to do a lot of hybrid style events at the beginning of the pandemic when stuff was still kind of open. And then coming later down, we just had to move straight to purely digital, and explaining the cost to the powers that be and the time that it takes to do these types of events was a bit of a challenge, because some of these people still have the mentality. I was like, oh, well, we have no audience, we have no security, we have no this, we have no that. Why is this event costing the same amount or more than if we had all these things? And we had to tell them, well, look, all this planning has to take place. There's way more planning to do a virtual event than it is to do a live event, because we have to figure out all the technical details. Everybody has to have the proper internet connections. I mean, the list of things needed is to me more demanding, because I've done enough of these to see a live event. You're moving into a venue that's already set up to do a live event, and you just go. The planning takes a few, depending on the size of the event. It doesn't take as much time, but I think generally the newer ministers that have been put in place, like at the Ministry of Tourism and stuff, and our line ministry, the Ministry of Trade, have begun to understand the reasoning for the extra cost to do these things, and they've seen the results that, so this is evergreen content. So this is not just an event that happens and then we never see it again. This is content that's going to be there forever that we can use to now continue to market the country and the brands that are involved. And they definitely starting to see the worth of it. So it's not just like, we do an event and that's it. They can now see why it costs money, you know?
Right. Yeah,
And I think to that is also, as I said, we have to spend a little time now just helping people understand what it really is. Because in all fairness, and I'm not going to talk as if I knew everything from the jump, I didn't. I had to do a lot of research and a lot of reading and a lot of trial and error and failing and that kind of thing. And Maarten, to your point, I 1,000% agree with you. This virtual life is way more work than if you had to do an in-person event. But as you said, the reach and the analytics and to me, it's a little more in terms of your return on investment for a virtual or digital than the in-person ones, where you can't be bringing everybody goes home and you never hear about it. But now we have this high production recording that we can now sell, we can now put out there, there's so many things that we can do with the content. And I think if we start to really talk about that more and open up that more, and persons take the leap and do it first, then we always have to have somebody that has to do it for everybody else to kind of get it, So yeah.
Cool. I'm now thinking, considering what you guys were saying, do these companies in Trinidad do they have like the right people in the marketing department now? Because as you know, Keron said something very important versus advertisement versus content. Everything now is going to be content driven, content driven, and we use cell phones and stuff to consume it. But do we have the right people in, or do we need to educate the right people in this department to show them that in marketing, is 1 in 6, they put out 1 and they get back 6 back in it, and content, as Maarten was saying, is evergreen. Yeah, it'll always be around, and they can reuse it, and they can show the matrix, and they'll be able to see the analytics and stuff behind it. To me, it's like a no-brainer. That's why it's really puzzling. It's serious with me, and it's really puzzling me concerning the walls there, because it's to me it's a no-brainer.
So I'm often referred to as the anti-hero when it comes to digital marketing, because I'm always at the agency's necks and marketing departments necks of every single company. And the reason being is because the majority of the companies that I have worked with in the past, or I have line of sight of, the marketing team has been traditionally trained. They've done their bachelor's, their master's in strategic marketing. And, if when it comes to traditional marketing, print, radio, news, they know that hands down. However, they're banking on that and their positions are secure. So they don't necessarily need to upgrade their own skill sets and frame of mind to deal with the marketing landscape of today, especially when a lot of these companies are outsourcing marketing to the agencies, and the agencies themselves are just creating static content and posting it on social media. When the marketing landscape is changing every single day, me and Tisha go back and forth all the time. Yo, there is new updates to live streaming platforms that she uses. There's new ways of monetizations for some of the things that I do with respects to live stream. When the companies themselves, their own marketing departments, are not keeping up to date, you're not seeing anybody pushing the ball. I mean, so there's pros and cons. If you are somebody who is an independent consultant or an independent company, and you are specializing in these things, well, man, oh man, you have all the runway to make all the money right now. But at the same time, a lot of the companies are not pushing the ball. They're not upgrading their own skill sets to be able to understand, what can be done. So I hope that answers your question. It needs to happen. I would love to see more of the marketing departments upgrade their own skill sets, but that is a slow process right now in the region.
Right. Okay.
So Shem, you're talking about walls and barriers. I think one of the barriers that we didn't address as yet, and I think, Keron, you're probably the perfect person to address this, is that payment barrier, right? So we know that we have financial restrictions in the Caribbean with being able to be paid for our live streams. I have been able to navigate around those things, but maybe you can talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah. So with anything that we do in the Caribbean, right? And I touched on this yesterday. One of the biggest problems that we have is that we consume a lot of American content or content from other markets. They have rules, regulations, systems, tools, platforms that greatly differ for them than for us, because 9 out of 10 times the company was built in their country and they have the full access to the suite of tools. That being said, when we in the region are looking to do anything, we need to think about payments first. Whatever the platform is that we are using, whether it's an email marketing platform, whether it's a social media platform, if it's a live streaming platform, when it comes to monetization, before you read anything, just skip to the section to see if you could even get paid. Because if the platform that you are using and you want to monetize, if you cannot receive the money, then don't even bother wasting your time trying to get to learn the platform itself. So when it comes to things like live streaming, we got to get creative with how we receive our monies. So most platforms, like let's just use Eventbrite as an example. That's a platform that I use if I want to create an event and I want to embed it onto my website so people can buy digital tickets. We know Eventbrite has upgraded. Now they have Zoom integration, so they automatically create the event or give people a password and do that whole funnel. But Zoom pays you out through PayPal. So depending on what country you are in the Caribbean, the majority of countries in the region are not eligible to receive funds from PayPal. So if you're in Jamaica, you can't use Zoom to monetize because Zoom integrates to PayPal, and Jamaica's not eligible to receive funds from PayPal. Neither is Barbados, neither is Guyana, and a couple other countries. Here in Trinidad, in order for us to receive funds from PayPal, we need to have a JMB bank account with their new Visa debit card or a Visa credit card to be able to receive those funds. It doesn't connect. We're not able to receive funds via MasterCard. So whatever platform that you are using, you need to think about, can I receive the money first? And then if you can't receive the money, then we need to look at, well, how else can we get paid? Or is there additional steps that we need to do? So one of the things I do for my own virtual events is that I know that a lot of the people in the Caribbean don't have a credit card. So if another additional option I would do would be I would create a product on my own website, and I would have people go to my website and pay me through my WePay integration. However, once I do that, I need to be mindful of the people that have paid me through that integration on my website through WePay. How am I getting the details of the virtual event to them? Because if I was using Eventbrite, and the reason I like to use Eventbrite is because everything is automated and I don't have to worry about nothing. But if I'm going to do it through my website, what are the additional steps I may need to do to be able to get the information to them? That way I could still, receive their funds. If I'm using a Caribbean payment processor, people are able to use things like the new Visa debit cards that are connected to their bank accounts and pay you online. If I were to use PayPal, that means people can only pay me with a credit card. So these are some of the things that we need to be thinking about when we are planning what platform are we going to use, how we are going to get paid, what is going to be the easiest way for people to pay you, but also for you to be able to receive the money.
If I can just add to that, Maarten, I was just going to say that is going to be a huge consideration for us moving forward with the future of these events, because the reality is that we will want to be able to have persons pay to be able to consume the content or to watch the shows or to quote unquote attend festivals or whatever event it is we're doing. So for me, what the experience has been thus far, again, as Keron said, a lot of these platforms, as much as they might have integrated payment solutions where persons can register, pay, get a ticket, and move on, which is ideally what you want to happen, a lot of those payment systems that work with these platforms are not available in Trinidad. So what we might have to do, or what we will have to look at is platforms, or probably build our own. I know we have people very capable of doing it here. We'll have to build our own system or platform where we can have persons, quote unquote, buy their tickets and be able to receive the money into our local accounts. With the rollout of these Visa debit cards, that is going to be a huge check mark, because the issue before would have been the lower credit card penetration in the country. So I think we're getting there really slowly, but I think the next step will be, how can we have a system where these persons or these artists or these creatives who want to hold these events, how a person's going to register, how a person's going to pay, and then how am I going to get that money into my bank account in a timely manner? Because the reality is, this is then the money I need to go pay the people who are producing, the camera crew, my manager, and all these different things. So I think that is a critical conversation to be had next as we look forward to the future of live streaming into these events.
Okay. So from what I'm hearing is that, and I know we had this conversation before last week about the payments and some of the limitations, but so what some of my thoughts about that is that, if, let's say, this was to get fixed, I believe that a great set of revenue will be able to come in from the world considering getting Trinidad up, especially here in the States. There are a lot of Trinidadians here that that consume or want to consume, or very interested, just like myself, what is going back home, what's going on home. And I think that if those walls fall, I think that there's no problem in people paying local content creators in Trinidad, and that in itself could be a whole new industry. Also, from a local content creation in Trinidad perspective, it will then help them, because of competition, natural competition. It will then help the quality then to go up, because then they'll be competing against not only regional, Caribbean and regional, they'll be competing against the world considering it. So they'll be looking at different things and different methods and different systems to make sure that the quality on point. So that would then force the industry to have a better product.
So
Mhm.
Go ahead, finish up.
Yeah. So it will kind of force the industry to have a better product. And also, if this problem was not there, then bring in a lot of different foreign exchange and a whole lot of different things into the country.
So it's not that we can't, and this is one thing I want to drive home to everybody watching. It's not that we can't. We can get paid globally. The issue is the people that are putting on the event. Do you understand what you need in order to get paid? That is the real problem. Because let's just say, if you wanted to go, if you know you're a big event promoter and you're going to be putting on a lot of these events, this is a good opportunity now to start thinking about opening up a bank account in, say, the US. You could go open up a Stripe Atlas account. You could go register your business in the US, open up a bank account over there, and then be able to open up a US PayPal account. You could pay your US taxes or whatnot and go that route. If you know that if this is a serious business for you, then that is an option for you. If you are somebody where, again, you don't want to, open up another bank account in another country, now the question is, we have local Caribbean payment processors. You got to look at, what platform can I use that may be able to work with one of these platforms? Or again, what are the steps that I need to take to be able to get paid? Do I need to hire a virtual assistant who is gonna, after the payments come in, do I need to hire a VA to manually add them to a system? So there are things that we can do. The thing is that we just need to be aware of all of the options, all of the pros, the cons, the limitations. That way, when you are planning your event, hey, okay, I have opened up a bank account in the US. I have a registered business over there, and I've opened up a bank account, and I've signed up a US PayPal. Well, guess what? Now you could use all of the platforms, and the payment processing isn't going to be an issue. Again, for me, I'm a smaller person. So when I do my workshops and people from, different parts of the world are coming in, I know what I've done is I've learned how to integrate Zoom into my WooCommerce platform. And I made sure I learned how to do that because WooCommerce works with WePay. So once people come to my website, and they pay via WePay, I have the integration with Zoom to automatically send out the information so that they can register. And that is my workaround for not having to be able to put PayPal or integrate PayPal into Zoom. I try to stay away from PayPal because I'm in Trinidad right now, because there's a higher percentage that PayPal takes. PayPal is 5.4% off of every sale in US. I don't want to pay that. WePay is a lot cheaper, so I've learned how to use WePay into my website and work with Zoom. So again, the things you can do is just to have people thinking about learning the options. That way they can make the most effective choice for their event planning.
This conversation is going really good, and we're running out of time, and I did want to try and touch on one other thing before we finish. Keron, I think MusicTT is going to have to get you back to basically do a whole workshop on just this, okay? So we're going to be in contact with you for that, because I think this is very, very important, and people don't understand how to negotiate those things properly. You know, they still have these fears, and they think, oh, well, it's too much work, I'm not doing it, so I'm not going to bother to try and even integrate monetization or anything. So they always just say, they throw their hands up in the air, it's like, nah, not bother. And I think it's a lot, it's work, but it's a lot easier than you think it is, you know?
Yeah, even something as simple as, okay, like I would go live for free on my platforms, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, YouTube, and whatnot. Monetization can be something as simple as I have my WePay link pinned in my comments for donation. So if people want to donate to me, they can hit the link, type in the amount of money that they want to donate, and do that. Whereas other platforms would have integrated with Zoom to be able to collect those fees. So that doesn't always have to be your situation. You could go learn about a WePay, a First Atlantic Commerce, learn how to use PayLink. So again, if you want to start to do live stream, you could be able to accept donations during those things. I recently seen that, you know, Facebook has content subscriptions now. And what intrigued me about that is Facebook content subscriptions is if you are producing content, whether it be via live stream or whether it be produced video, the two options they pay out through are PayPal and direct wire transfer to us. So we are seeing some more ways to monetize. And again, I always will tell people to start with payments in mind, because once you know how you can get paid, that automatically will disqualify or qualify, you know, what platforms you use and what types of content and the different ways that you're going to be able to monetize. So yeah, I know that, again, that's a critical thing. And I know Tisha, Shem, they could talk about all the platforms and break those down. And again, once you decide when you are making your event and you know how you're getting paid, you know, rock out, have fun.
All right, so I just want to touch on this one thing. So let's do a case study based on all the things we talked about this morning, right? So Carnival 2022 is happening, whether it's an in-person carnival or virtual carnival. We don't know exactly what's going to happen yet, but I know from the plans that NCC is having, there is going to be some sort of carnival in 2022, right? It may not involve a street parade, it may not involve all the competitions, but something's happening. So let's imagine that we were able to do the Dimanche Gras. So if you don't know what a Dimanche Gras is, it's that event on the Carnival Sunday that crowns the king and the queen of the carnival. Traditional, it used to have the Calypso King competition involved in there too. So if we were to do this kind of Dimanche Gras competition or event virtually, and we're trying to push this out mainly to the diaspora and people who's interested in this, I mean, what kind of planning would we need to do? How do we see this event happening? Are we looking at multiple camera setups? Where would be a place to stream it to? Let's start thinking about it, you know?
This feels like a Pandora box. Okay. Definitely, I think we need to explore it, because it's one of the comments that I made on my personal pages, you know, coming out of everything this year. there are events in Carnival, and Carnival is not just a street parade. There are events that we can still put on, live stream, monetize the whole shebang, and get it going. So if we have to use this the Dimashqa example, listen, my heart will skip if we get this right. So so I think it's a combination of looking at the show that we are accustomed doing, because at the end of the day, you're going to be putting on a show on the stage in the Queen's Park Savannah because of the size of the costumes that we have to have, right? But what is going to be different is how is the audience now going to be watching the show. So if we are to live stream something like this, the show is not just going to be what is happening on the stage. The show is going to start from all the behind the scenes and all the, what is happening, how are these costumes rolling on, right? Or how are the artists getting ready to come on to perform. The event is going to be how are we preparing for Dimashqa virtually, because as Shem said, the whole marketing side of it, why do I want to pay to watch this? If you guys start showing me how is the team preparing all the behind the scenes stuff, then I'm going to be super excited to see what the live thing is. So when do we need to start? Almost now, because that's just now. And for me, as I always say, these virtual events are starting with the end in mind. So what do we want persons to see? What do we want persons to consume? What do we want persons to experience? And then build backwards from there. So yes, it's going to be a ton of cameras because it's the stage angles, it's the coming onto the stage angles, it's the behind getting ready angles. It's proper sound, it's internet like you've never had internet before, because you're going to need backup upon backup upon backup. So it is going to be a production. It's going to take a lot of planning, way more planning than if you were doing the in-person event.
I believe I could add to this. I believe that the right structure to one of the right approaches to do it, and I've seen it done, is that you have like a space, and more like this production space, and you have all the production elements there, from cameras, and to get a little more technical, make sure everything's in 4K running fiber optics. We could have a LED wall background, so we could change the background, so we could change different sceneries and stuff like that. So you more or less have this production. I won't call it a studio because it's bigger than a studio. It will have to be a pretty big space to do it. And then you more or less have a runner show. You produce what is going on from an event planning perspective. You plan it out from there, and have somebody call on the show. But I think that there's a lot of, I think that the in Trinidad, you guys should be able to pull it off, because you guys have the infrastructure down there, more or less, to do it. You have the infrastructure to do it, and I think that it will just be based on the imagination of the person who's putting it together, and then having the technical know-how how to pull it off, which I think is there. So lighting, sound, I won't stay too long in this because we have so much time. But I think that there are facilities in Trinidad that could pull this off. It may not be outside, but it might be able to be done indoors in a more controlled environment, and the content could be world-class content. I think somebody budgets that. I don't know what's the budget for 2020 Carnival next year, but maybe some of that money could be allocated into developing these spaces, and these, because there are people in Trinidad. I know people in Trinidad have actually played Songforge, and there are other guys that have these places here that could do it, and that can maybe develop a whole new market, and developing these virtual bigger studios to pull off a virtual carnival. Yes, we want to be on the road, but there are ways that we could be on the road inside.
I want to say that I have full confidence in the creativity of all of our planners to be able to pull off a wonderful virtual event. I think the only worry I have is do people understand the business model surrounding virtual events so that it actually brings in profit? Because I feel like everybody feels like they don't want to do virtual because they don't know how to recoup a lot of these funds, and they feel like they only have to rely on the sponsorships. And if they don't get the sponsors, then everybody's up in arms saying that the government doesn't want to support anybody. But they need to understand or need to learn, what are the new business models that surround virtual events and live streaming. So I want to see, again, if you are if events is your thing, I want to be able to see you guys utilizing things like Eventbrite, learning how to use these platforms to be able to get your e-tickets out there, have a seamless integration into whatever virtual event platform you're using, so that people can add to cart, buy, they get an email, and when it comes time to watch the event, they can click a link and go right into the live experience. There are so many different platforms out there that allow for a seamless integration from the payment side and then right into, again, clicking a link and going into the virtual event. So I want to see more people, companies, event planners just learning more about the business model surrounding virtual events, the different platforms that they could use so that they could charge for e-tickets and then have a seamless experience where nobody's fussing about, they didn't get a ticket, they didn't get a link. If you didn't get a link or end up in your spam, can I log back into my account and be able to see the upcoming event and click on it? So that's going to be the big thing that I would like to see, because I don't just want people to rely on sponsorships. Start learning about the different business models, the different ways to sell content and monetize content. That way we can decrease our reliance on getting sponsorships in order to have a successful event.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the part of it that's needed is that that pre-marketing, because the audience has to be built in to this thing. Because traditionally, like this event particularly, is just shown on the national channel, and I wouldn't know what the viewership is there, but it's definitely not monetized in a way that it can be. So I mean, I think building in the marketing from the beginning, maybe building that narrative, so we could go in all the mass yards and film what's going on with these the costume designers and see what's going on, where their head is at, interview them, and have that as part of the narrative, and start creating some content from now that people could start buying into, like you were saying, Tisha. So have them start buying into it from now, getting that behind the scenes. So when the show is live and ready to go, you already have this built-in audience of thousands and thousands of people who are ready to buy any tickets. And I mean, I guess it's a bit of a gamble, but all events are a gamble, right? I mean, we've been doing this long enough, and we know that there's always a gamble with events, because a bad storm could come the night or whatever it is and just ruin everything for you. So
I think it's just, as I said, it's starting with the end in mind. If we know that is what we want to do, then we need to start just looking at what is required to make that happen. And as we established, it's not going to be a walk in the park, but it's exciting times ahead, because we have to realize that our market is not just here. So as I said, it would have been a TV production. So there are some elements that you would have had in place. Now you just have to have a few extra, and to be able to push out the live stream, but more importantly, the content that is going into the live stream. So it's not just going to be, oh well, I'm going to cut a commercial because this is the sponsor thing. What else can I show to bring people into the experience, to help them appreciate? And as you said, if the marketing for this was planned and done in advance in a way that people have bought into this thing, and now you start to create what we call in the marketing world a FOMO, the fear of missing out, then they're like, okay, no, I've been seeing the content, I really want to know what this is. And then what is going to eventually happen when things are quote unquote normal, then people will want to come and fly in to experience this thing real time, because they would have had this virtual experience. So it's going to take some investment. We're probably not going to see the rewards the way we will quote unquote want. But as you said, this is all evergreen content. This is about pushing what we have and what we own. This is us. And what we didn't touch on in this whole live streaming thing is the whole idea of intellectual property and IP. That's a whole other conversation. But that is something that we'll also have to be mindful of once we start pushing out this content via stream, music and copyright and all those different things. And that's something else that we have to look at. But again, it's to Keron's monetization. This is another way that you can earn, because then if you are putting out this content, then reproduction of it, and you have IP rights on it, then that's money that's for you, revenue for you that can come in after the fact. So
to add to Tisha's point, right? One of the big challenges is we need to learn about the various ways, the hundreds of ways to monetize. We don't just need to monetize the content. So I'll give you an example. Let's just say we're doing a road to Damascus, right? And we know that at the end of the entire journey, we're going to be watching that show. If there is a segment that is talking about, the building of let's use costumes for example. Let's just say we're going to be doing a road to carnival, right? And one of the bands decides that they're going to be showcasing how they build the costumes. Now that's content that people could pay for, but you know what else could happen? Let's just say, what if the people that are watching want to create their own costumes? You can do things like affiliate sales. So if you know that there are vendors that are selling these things, you could set up commission links online where anybody that clicks on the link, the company can make a percentage of it. If you're using goods that you could buy on Amazon, you could set up an Amazon store. So if people want to participate in the building of the costume, they can go onto your Amazon link and buy all the necessary components. And then you, the company, would make commission off of those sales. You can do digital courses. So yes, we can watch the content, but again, what if I want to learn how to build the costume alongside with you? I could then subscribe to your digital course at a fee and learn how to create the costume as well. So monetization isn't just limited to the content. The content is a driver of traffic to the various different streams of income that you can create. And again, we need to learn about the new way of conducting business online, because there are hundreds of ways to monetize content, and we are only ever concerned about one: you paying a fee to come into a live event, when there are so many other ways that you can create that content. Another thing is, if you have a website and you're pushing content to your website, simply, again, being able to sell either ad space or connecting Google AdSense, and as traffic is coming into your platform, you are raking in money from people just coming to your website. So there's a lot of ways to monetize. We just need to learn the wide range of them, and then you're not going to be so reliant on just one aspect having to perform well in order to recoup your costs.
Yeah, I think that's a really nice place for us to conclude. Just that mindset change needs to happen, that we don't need to, as you say, just depend on event sales to get, because, there's no reason why this industry can't be booming way more than it is, So again, I want to thank all our panelists. I hope to see some of you in our networking session later. Once you can make it, it'll be great. I know people are going to have tons of questions. So again, thanks everybody again for being part of this. The discussion was great. I know we could talk again for another 3 hours on these topics. So hopefully we can have these conversations a little bit more in the future. And it was great. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks, man.